When this came to me and was literally presented to me as an opportunity to write about Leon Russell, I saw the arc. I saw those beginnings, I saw that middle, and I saw the comeback, because I remember being really deeply affected when he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and seeing that tear-jerking speech about Elton John saving him from a ditch in the side of the highway of life and bringing him to the highest stages. And I said, well, there's the redemption. So there's 3 acts right there. I knew going in that he had started with Jerry Lee Lewis, that he had become a first call, later called the Wrecking Crew session player. I knew Mad Dog's era. I knew about him becoming a star and writing like 3 or 4 standards that I loved. And I knew he married Mary, and then I kind of lost the thread. And I honestly thought the book would be much shorter, because I'm like, well, what am I going to write about from 76 to 2008, And there was a lot, because the downfall and the comeback, the road, that was way more compelling than I had anticipated, because it's human to talk to his family and his friends and the people like Jackie Wessel who were in the band with him, and Bo Sharon, and in the bus with him day after day, tour after tour. There was a lot there, a lot about a human being. And that's what makes the story, as opposed to here's a rock star, the rise and fall of a rock star and the comeback. If there's only one thing I knew from my life of what I wanted to do in any kind of direction, it was music. It was my language. My first band was with like some neighbor kids, guys that I'd come up through elementary and junior high school with. And this guy was also somehow he had this really eclectic record collection, from like the Crusaders, jazz fusion, to Allman Brothers. But he had Mad Dogs, and all those records kind of spoke to me in a way. But Mad Dogs was one of those records that just took me by the throat. My first couple of records I got were inherited from a neighbor, and one was Out of Our Heads by the Stones, and one was Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan. And you're reading these notes in the back, and you're reading, producers, and I'm looking at the label, all that stuff. I was like, what does this all mean? Oh, this guy, Leon Russell, he was also over here. And you start making these connections. And it's, nowadays with the internet since the last 30 years or whatever, you can click it and go, okay, here's this hyperlink that takes you all his credits, and it's great. But back then it was like kind of decoding. Everybody wanted to say something about Leon. All these people that especially had direct contact with him or were influenced really directly by him wanted to pay tribute to Leon. And they thought, what a worthy subject of a book. But also a lot of it, these guys people were off the road, it was the pandemic. So people were around, and people were used to doing Zoom calls all of a sudden. So it was fortuitous in that point, because at first I'm like, oh, great, this thing happens just as I'm about to do my book. So I'm not going to be able to travel to Tulsa, for example, until this is over or whatever, or go out to LA and go check out Sky Hill or talk to different people, which I thought I'd have to do in person. And I wasn't able to get to OK Pop's archives until kind of the last minute, really, in the manuscript process. But the positive, as I said, was so many people were home and willing and sort of wanting to talk. So I talked to my record collection, as I tell people, it's like Bruce Springsteen, Randy Newman, Rita Coolidge, Willie Nelson, Elton John. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, James Burton, for a guitar player to be able to talk to James Burton, the guy that started with Ricky Nelson and was in Elvis Presley's band, is like, but everybody wanted to talk about Leon. Sonny Curtis, who was a Cricket, but who was in Buddy Holly's band before the Crickets and then after, and wrote 3 amazing songs that are classics. That kind of stuff is just, it's 137, 138 people altogether, including family and friends. I got to say, the most surprising but also favorite was Eric Clapton. And now I had grown up with Eric Clapton as a guitar player. In the 70s, he was, still regarded as like, God. And then there was sort of a reassessment of him, because he started to do different kinds of music. I think he kind of turned off a lot of people with his outspoken kind of certain opinions. And a lot of great guitar players came in his wake. I mean, 30 plus years of other guitar players came. So you start to lose focus of the context of their innovations. Like, nobody was really doing what Eric was doing in the early 60s, mid 60s. But all of that aside, so I came with like, oh, what's Eric Clapton going to be like? And he was fantastic. We talked for about an hour, and his memory was fantastic. I think he was a diary keeper, but we talked about guitars. He told me things like that he had come to see. So Leon and he had sort of not a falling out so much. I think it was, Eric struggled obviously with substances, and Leon wanted sort of none of that in his life at a certain point. So I was told that Eric was banned from Leon's world at a certain point. But when Leon came back out with the Newgrass revival in like 79, and then the early 80s. So Eric told me he showed up at the gig that was recorded in Pasadena. So he's in the audience, and I told that to the Newgrass guys, like John Callan, and like, he was? He was there. They had no idea. But Eric described it with such vivid details. He remembers, and he loved that era of Leon, as many of us do, that sort of bluegrass, kind of no drummer vibe, that he was really playing fast and clearly amped up and enjoying it. The danger in having written a book about anybody is that people now think, well, you must be the expert on it. But I've never met Leon. I've only painted a picture from all these different voices that I think explains who Leon was. The more people you talk to, the bigger the picture becomes, I think. You know, it's funny. I was just responding to a lifer about the book, and she was challenging my source on, did Leon start on alto sax? He started on cornet, and I said that in the book. And then I don't know, one of my sources said he took on the sax. He could take on pretty much any kind of instrument. But in the earliest stages of my research, I think I came across the Lifers documentary that's Anything Can Happen. It's a long video on YouTube. You know, because I was trying to find things on Leon even before I put a book proposal together. And that was one of the things that really made me understand where his career had gone, you know, after his peak. Here were all these people that sort of stayed by him, and they formed this web community with message boards, and they became a community, as you often, not like deadheads, where they were traveling circuses, but they were people that really did develop relationships, and they're still, as you know, they're still really close to each other to this day. And one of the things I was really looking forward to was meeting Johnny McDonald. So it was a great blow to lose him as well, because he was such a cheerleader for all things Leon, but he was so excited about the church and what you've been doing and about the book coming out. And it saddens me that he wasn't even able to read it, you know, to be there when it came out. So, I mean, I get choked up talking about these people. I know it meant a lot to the band and to Leon. I mean, it made him realize how much his music was still impacting people, I think, you know. And Jackie said, you know, it just made being on the road so much nicer when you could pull into a place and they're cooking you a home-cooked meal. And I think, you know, there's a little bit of, sometimes people get a little too close and they think they know you as a famous person. So I think Leon had to put up a little bit of a shield there sometimes. But no, they're the ones that really carried the torch to keep that flame alive for Leon, that really brought him to the stage where Elton John could bring him back to the full stage.